we're just going to start our town hall, or whatever you want to call that. So we have half an hour to just, you can ask us questions, you can converse back and forth if you'd like to say anything. I have one person, Joshua Palkin. He would like to present like an idea for the community. So I'd like to give him the floor first, and if you have any questions for him, and then afterwards for us, we can do that.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Joshua Palkin. I actually got up and gave a quick talk about this point at the last meeting, but I wanted to get it before the board, which is the idea about whether or not the school levy is the best and appropriate way to meet our funding needs in school districts in the state of Idaho. And my position on that is it is not, because it creates this civil war where people are always opposing or supporting the more money that the school needs, and creating this battle every year, creating all sorts of uncertainties and instability for the school district and how to plan and stuff. At the same time, people that oppose it don't want to pay more property taxes, and they don't like the fact of the way that the budget process works. And clearly, this budget process is very divisive. I personally don't think it's working out for anybody. I mean, really, anybody can admit that the levy is a bad system for funding our government. And why that is backed up by the fact that our state constitution in the state of Idaho, in fact, requires the state legislature to pay 100% of the cost of education in this state. That is the way the Constitution reads. And so what they did was they basically, in order to avoid that, they basically say, well, we're going to fund this much, and we're going to let everybody else vote on levies and self-imposed taxes. And now you have the system that we have, which is, in my view, completely unconstitutional. Of course, I'm not the first one. I'm a retired lawyer, but I wasn't the first one to think of this argument. This argument actually has been raging over a lot of western states and was litigated in all these states, including Idaho. And in the 90s, a citizens group brought a lawsuit against the state legislature and the Board of Education, claiming that they were failing to fund basic education as required by the Constitution. And guess what? They won that case. They won it at the trial level. It went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court affirmed and said that is true. The state has failed to provide funding for the schools as it's required to do under the Constitution. And then what happened? They dropped it. They did nothing. The Supreme Court did nothing with it. They didn't order the state to pay the money. They didn't say what to do or what not to. Just dropped it because it was a political hot potato. So rather than ruling that something had to be done based on their finding, they did nothing. And what did the legislature do? Did the legislature come up and offer more funding and acknowledge the Supreme Court decision? No, they didn't. They passed a new law the very next year called the Constitutional Based Claims Act, which basically prohibited any more lawsuits or claims like the one they had just lost. I mean, it's really just, when you think about what they did, it's absolutely outrageous. They said, we're not going to allow a group of citizens to come in here and make a claim that we aren't funding education, because they knew they weren't, and they knew they would lose. And so they passed a law saying, you can't do it. Well, that law went up, and there was more litigation on that, more litigation on everything. The thing has been an absolute mess. So the message here is that the courts have failed us, and the legislature has failed us. And that leaves one thing that you can do, which is the citizen initiative. The citizen initiative, which basically you get enough signatures on a petition, it goes on the state ballot, and then the citizens of the state of Idaho can say, yes, we think that's a good idea, or no, we think that's a bad idea. So that's what I'm proposing, is a citizens initiative. I developed a draft. We're already starting to circulate it. It's a very complicated procedure, but I produced some memos and other stuff that are available to everybody who wants them. And what I'm asking this community and this board to do is to tell me the answer to the question. Do you like the way the schools are funded, or don't you? Would it be better if the state provided all the money the school needed, or would you prefer to keep doing levies? That's the policy question. There are a lot of complicated legal issues, and the law is a mess. So I can't predict everything that might happen, but I think what we need, and what I'm going to ask the board at next month's board meeting to put on the formal agenda, is the question. Do you want to keep, would you like to get rid of this levy system and have the state pay that money instead? Now, we're not talking about removing levy money. We're talking about the total that they're paying now, plus the amount, the average of the levies. That would be the full funding amount the state would be required under this proposal. And then from there on, what the legislature does with it is anybody's guess. But that would be basically a huge political, social, and cultural movement in the state of Idaho, and I would be very proud to have been starting that here in Idaho County if we could reform the way that all Idaho schools are funded. So that's my pitch. Like I said, I have documents that explain the details of it, and whatever time I have, I can answer any questions that the board or anybody has.
Yeah. Could you say your name too?
Shar McKinney. Sir, and I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. The reality of it is that is a project that we need to look at for the future. But for right now, my personal opinion is we need the levy for at least another year, so that, or the levy amount, so that we can get those kind of things in place. Because if you close schools, and it's gonna impact our whole area. So while I don't disagree with what you're saying and the state's obligation, I'm just saying that right now, coulda, woulda, shoulda, here's where we are. And for today, we have to have a levy.
Well, let me respond quickly, because I've heard that, and we've tried to vet this proposal through as many people in the community as we have to see if we're making wrong assumptions and so on. But my answer to that is, wouldn't it be better if you could go to the people here in Idaho County and say, hey, help us pass this levy. We're also working on a way to not have this again. So it kind of like giving me the idea that maybe this might be possibly the last levy that you're going to have to vote for. Please support it. We're going to work on a long-term solution. So I don't think they're mutually inconsistent or contradictory.
What would be your timeline?
Basically, when you have to get a matter on the initiative, you need to turn in the requisite number of signatures by May 30th of the year that you want to be on the ballot. So that means the earliest you can be on the ballot would be November of 2025. But you have to leave yourself plenty of room to gather about, when I say 60,000 signatures is what will be required statewide to get it on the ballot. And that just means, 3,000 people each get 20 signatures. It's not a huge thing that goes on the ballot. So and the maximum signature period you're allowed under the law is 18 months. But we're figuring, hey, if the school boards get on board with this and people who are affected by it all want it, we should be able to gather those signatures inside of a year. So we were thinking if we file this as a preliminary measure, the other important thing is that, especially for the board, because we don't want to sell people a pig in the poke, or what are you buying, or what does this really mean? This proposed initiative goes to the Attorney General's office by law, and they are required to review that to see how it interacts with other laws and the ballot initiatives and all, and make sure that it's legal and that there's no untoward or illegal or unconstitutional or weird results. They're supposed to give us a report on that 20 days after we file it. And at that point, we would know if there was a defect or some other major legal problem that the state had with the proposal. So you're not relying on me, and the board's we're not hiring lawyers, to do this. It's a very complicated thing. But fortunately, the state has that covered. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Falcon, I'm Katie Mossman. I grew up in a farm family, so I absolutely understand the inequities that the levy system places on property owners. My question is, I have two questions. My first is, where would the state then generate the funds to supplement what property taxpayers in those districts are currently paying? Do you have any proposals in that regard?
We're not trying to go there. I don't think we can legally tell the legislature how to raise and spend their money. We can tell them that what they have to spend it on, that they have to meet this funding thing, but they would have to come up with the money on their own statewide. So it's possible they may say, hey, I have no idea what they might say or how they might raise the money, but they're going to have to raise it. But how they would do that is beyond the scope of trying to control that in advance. It would be a big political earthquake, and people would be all over it and seeing what was going on. So whatever it was, it would be shared by everybody.
So my second question, thank you, Mr. Chairman, is in 2006, House Bill 1 was passed, which gave us our current funding system. And it was sold to the taxpayers as a way to give local communities control over their schools and decide what are the aspects of the school budget that they feel passionately about funding, and decide if they do want to cover those. Do you see that loss of local control as a benefit or as a handicap to communities who prefer small
That's an
government.
excellent question, and I had thought about it, and I understand that was an argument for that law, but if you just ask yourself how it's worked out, whether it really has added any control, any local control to the curriculum or the operation of the schools, I'd say really very little. I think basically patron involvement in local schools is the most important thing. Whether you vote for a levy or not, Tyler doesn't know if I voted for the levy or not. I just think it was a smoke screen for the law, saying, oh, well, you guys will get to control everything if you pay for it. Well, it hasn't worked, I guess is all I can say. And I don't think anybody here is going to say it did.
Hi, Stephanie Weber. Do you think potentially introducing it at this time could introduce voter confusion for voters that are not as close to what's going on?
In with regard to levy itself?
The
No,
passing
because
of
it
the
won't
levy.
really go out for signatures until after the levy election.
Will it get any kind of press or
Not
reporting?
until it's officially approved. So our timing would be that it would basically be officially approved by the Secretary of State sometime in June this year.
There's a potential any reporting for any press members in this room would go back and publish it in a local paper that may introduce that.
Well, again, it depends on your view of whether you think it's a good thing for the levy this year or not. I personally think it's a good thing because I think people will see, hey,
I'm just worried about voter confusion and timing.
Yeah.
I think timing is more or less my concern, not necessarily the initiative. I think the initiative could be moved beyond.
but then you have the
May
same problem the next election. It's like a chicken and the egg. I understand you're set.
And a
There's just
2-year, but with a 2-year levy, isn't it? The 2 years, at least you got a runway then, right?
Yeah, well, whatever, I doubt it's gonna get much publicity. I stood up and spoke at the other meeting, and they had the summaries of 10 or 12 people in the paper today, but my comments weren't in there. I don't know, I don't think it's possible, but I think it's better just to keep forging ahead. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, that was my impression too, because being involved in initiative process, I know it's a couple of years before you're gonna see any fruit from that. And I don't know if the voters necessarily know that, particularly when you're saying you wanna launch it now. I don't know if they understand that process as well as you do, because you've obviously researched it. So that would be my only thing, is that people might think, oh, well, here's Joshua Palkin, he has this idea that's so good, and we don't need the levy, because he's got this idea that the legislature, we're gonna get this done, but I don't think they realize how long it takes to get done.
Well, if they're out of that attitude, they're probably not gonna vote for the levy anyway. I think, what I discovered, and I've been iffy on it, and I was amazed, because I went to the last meeting, and I was telling Mr. Harrington that I was really kind of moved by the people who spoke there for the first time, the pro-levy people. Because what I realized was that the high school I grew up with is what they wanna keep. And that costs more than charter schools. Let's just face it, what the programs that the public schools offer and the way the part of it is in the community, it just costs more. So if you don't, so I think the levy has been the way it hasn't been the focus, the marketing of the levy hasn't been really on that, which I think is the real reason to vote for more money, because it's been proven by charter schools that you can give reading, writing, and arithmetic for less money than the public schools spend. But they offer so much more. Public schools are not, you can't compare the two, apples and oranges.
I 100% agree with you. I'd love to get rid of the levies. I've been asking in Boise for a few years now. I think it turns focus to finances and budget instead of academics, which is where our focus should be as a school board. We spend more time trying to figure out money, and if we don't get the money, then we're spending our time trying to figure out how to deal with not having the money. I think, I came from Illinois, not a great state, that's why I'm here, but they fund their schools, and there wasn't the drama of all of this in the community. So Josh, I guess what I'm asking you, Mr. Pelkin, sorry.
It's okay, Josh is fine.
You had mentioned that the courts and the legislators let us down, but they're still there. And I don't think that it's a lost cause. We have legislators that will listen to us. I wonder if it would be a quicker route than getting signatures and everything to just do the homework for a legislator that wants to present a new idea to their constituents. The problem is I've thought about it for 3 years and I suck at writing. I was a middle school teacher, I can't write it, I don't have the time to write it. I would love for you to come up with something
I've done the memos already, I'd be
that
happy
you
to share
could
them with you.
give our
Yeah,
representatives.
I will post them on a Substack and I'll get you that stuff, and
And
they're also on a
send
community website. But I guess I'm just gonna say I'm becoming a jaded cynical, and I don't trust the legislature, even if there's a handful of people from Idaho County that are fantastic. The powers that be are not gonna let this happen.
I feel
I mean,
like I've
that's
been
just
down
my-
there and seen people that love other people doing their homework for them. And I think if
Well, I've done the homework and I'm happy to share with you.
I think if they had homework done and they could claim it as their own and they would get a lot of press because of it, I think that it would possibly gain movement and it would benefit every school district in this state.
I'm happy to share it, and any headway you could make with it or put anybody's name on it is fine with me. I have no pride of authorship.
We're gonna go to the back here.
John Silveria. I've done a lot of homework over the last 3 years. I've given information that would answer Katie's question, where the money is gonna come from. If you look back at the history, in 65 and 66, and many of you have heard this already, but you haven't probably, they passed a 3% sales tax in this state. And it was all sold on the pamphlet that most of it's gonna be for education. At that time, they had 17 exemptions to that tax. Today, we have 106 exemptions to that tax, at a 6% sales tax, at a total of $2.25 billion. There was initiatives run the last 2 years down at the legislature trying to get through committee to say we could drop the sales tax of the state back to 4% and still get rid of all those exemptions that weren't there originally and still have $1.5 billion for education. So it's not so much that they don't know, like B, I can give them the information. I've sent it via email, you all have it. It's just that they have not acted on it. There's ways to do this and they don't act. And secondly, I'd like to say, for those of us that are on a fixed income, we are as important as these kids are, and we can't afford this tax. And so I'm still opposing the levy. And we're gonna keep opposing it until we can get rid of it and do it the way the Constitution says it's supposed to be done.
I just wanted to tack on to that. I don't know if John was here the last time. I did talk about the circuit breaker, which anybody on a fixed income can apply for and get tax relief from these taxes on your property. But secondly, just so you know, in the last couple of years, even during COVID, Idaho had a surplus. It was, I believe, $1.3 billion. And what they did with that surplus, instead of funding education like our Constitution says, is they returned it to us. So, you know, it's hard to say. I like your idea a lot. I just think, I hope you'll make it clear that we still need this levy in this moment. And then we're gonna be proceeding on multiple tax, however they are, whether you work with B or you do the Citizens Initiative, which I think is a very good idea.
And I appreciate that. I'm trying to be more like a Switzerland with regard to the current levy, you know,
Yes.
because I want to try to bring the parties
Together.
that are fighting together on something they can agree on, which is nobody likes the levy. And so
Yeah.
for me to say, well, I have very mixed feelings about it, as I've expressed tonight.
If we brought this to the public's attention, say in June, is it gonna derail anything on your part, or?
Not at all, no. In fact, that would be
So if we
the timing
waited-
for us for the rollout in terms of, again, not confusing people and actually having something already vetted by the lawyers at the Attorney General's office would be June. So it would be after the levy. I would be the time when we would want to kind of go public with it. And we would hope and we consider, the support of the local school board as a requirement to do anything. We would not try to proceed with this. If we can't convince the people in this room, then we're basically not going to try to convince anybody else. And one of the practical reasons for that is because we need the other school boards to get on board to help us get the signatures. And if one school board leads to 2, leads to 4, I mean, it might balloon. And like I said, wouldn't that be something if we could say, hey, look what we started, and it ended up doing it, forcing the legislature to pay what they're supposed to pay under the Constitution. I mean, I'm a true believer. That's why I became a lawyer, and I've been so disillusioned and disappointed and frustrated with the courts. I finally gave up my license. I just said I can't take it anymore because it was so political. It was, and forget corruption. It was just, it was, and the Supreme Court of Idaho, they proved that in this case by not providing a remedy because it was too political for them to do it, to say, hey, you've got to pay. They wouldn't do it.
I just wanted to take a minute, Valley Peppercorn, I teach at the elementary here, school here, and say thank you to Carly for the wonderful information you gave in those budget workshops that educated so many people as to the money that we really need here and to our board. I really want to commend you guys on coming together as a group of people who are having to make decisions for a school district that impacts a lot of people's lives, and really stepping up and saying we're going to unite and help get a levy passed that is needed, because I don't think you guys understand that the impact that that's had in our schools. The feeling that we had in our schools, and this is spring break, by the way, guys, it's a hard time. So right before break, with them being as swirly as they are, it was an uplifting feeling in our buildings, knowing that we finally have a group of people who is willing to come together and be unified and really make those choices that are hard but necessary as a group. So thank you for doing that as a board.
Okay, I think I've exhausted my, anybody else? Thank you very much for your attention tonight.
Thank you.
We have 5 minutes. Any other comments? Yeah.
Well, I have a comment about the headline that ran in the newspaper, which I think is very misleading to voters who aren't paying attention, because it says district will run 2-year, $2.9 million levy in May. It's really 5.8 million, not 2.9, and it doubles down on that in the article. So I think the paper is putting some false information out there, or
We'll try to correct
misleading.
that. We'll try to correct that.
Misleading. And then the other thing is, I looked up District 244 proficiency scores, and I think they're pretty abysmal. We have reading at 37% in the 4th grade level, 37% still in 8th grade. That to me is appalling, really appalling, and I wonder what's being done to raise these test scores.
Well, we probably need to focus on that instead of levy stuff, right?
Well, you know, the teachers should be teaching, not electioneering.
Were there, okay, so there's a couple of data scores, were there any positive scores in
Not
that?
in my mind, because the highest one I saw was 52.1 overall. And I'm sorry, but I think that's horrible. As a person who loves to read, who had a good elementary school, very small school, and parents who taught me to read, I was just stricken by this. I was appalled.
Well, a
So,
lot of the kids have half of what you had.
well, you know, like I say, it was a very small school, and I wish that parents would teach their kids, help teach them to read and that. But I just would like to know how you plan on improving these test scores. You know, does it take new teachers? I don't think it takes money, I'm sorry. You know?
I would like to respond to that as
Sure.
a teacher who's
Absolutely.
in our buildings. Part
Absolutely.
of the reason that we need money is because we need curriculum. We don't have the materials needed to teach them. And we finally were able to get a new reading curriculum this year, and I've taught in this school for almost 10 years. So we finally got a new curriculum just this school year to actually get all of us on the same page and being able to teach those kids. Otherwise, every teacher was taking time all the time to try to get what was needed, and it was different and sporadic because we didn't have that curriculum. We are
Well-
still without a math curriculum, and we know that those scores are that way. We understand that, and we are working our tails off in our buildings to change that, but we can't do it if we don't have a curriculum that aligns to all the standards that those tests that you're referring to are aligned to.
I'm curious, do you teach phonics? Because that's how I learned to read, and
We
it was
do.
a
We
very
do.
good,
We absolutely
good.
do.
I'm happy to hear
And you
that.
might wanna, like, we did have a few years where,
And I would
Phonics
ask you to
didn't
come see
work.
my classroom.
like,
Why?
politically, we weren't supposed to be using phonics, this was like 8 years ago.
Okay.
So there's a few years where, and the teachers, they knew that that wasn't correct, so they actually still taught phonics, but there was some years where politically, it was supposed to be whole word learning, which does not work. And site, you figure it out by looking at the picture. Well, what if there's no picture? So we're getting better. It is getting better, but
Well, I would just like to see like 70s, 80s.
we would too.
Yeah,
We
so
would too.
please work on that. I'd be much more likely to vote for a levy.
All right, right here, guys.
We agree.
Hi, Stephanie, again, just want to mention, did you guys know what the #1 school is in the state? It's Troy. Do you know that they went from lower to the #1 in the state in 4 years after they passed their levy?
Oh,
So I just wanted to
Oh, wow.
mention that that investment from that community helped up their scores to make them the #1 school district in the state.
Money
In the
doesn't
back.
always translate.
Sorry, real quick, Kelly
Sorry.
Wilson, Grangeville. I spoke 2 weeks ago too, but I just wanted to bring you back to the Heritage Foundation's data that has Idaho as the #1 return on investment for education. So we have the lowest funding per pupil of all 50 states, and we have the 9th best test scores. So if we're spending the absolute least and still being able to stay in the top 10 in test scores, if we support our teachers, if we come together as a community, if we get good curriculum, think of where our kids are gonna be. So return on investment. So I know it's more money, but we can't just focus on cuts and revenue and taxes. You gotta look at what you're getting for that. And I know our local scores aren't up to what any of us want them to be, but as a state, we spend the least per pupil, we have the 9th best test scores. Go to the Heritage Foundation and check that out for return on investment, for what you're getting for your tax dollars.
2 minutes.
I'll make it short.
Okay, real quick.
Vinny Martinez. I just wanted to respond to the reading one. So, as a state average,
Could you speak up, please? We can't hear you.
yes,
quick.
the numbers that you're seeing in doing my admin work, I certainly wasn't impressed by them. She is accurate in what they are. But I would like to point out 2 things. There's a lot of variables going on. It's not, first and foremost, it's not for teachers not trying. They are working their tails off, and they're troubleshooters at minimum, so they're doing their best. But I would like to say we went through COVID. COVID learning loss was a learning loss across the nation, and so some of those little ones in the test scores that you are seeing are on some of those kids that had the most impact from kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and the score you're seeing in reading are there. And then I would say that if you look at state average, state average is not 70s and 80s% either.
No, and it should
And
be.
so I just want, that support the levy to help us get us through this, and let's troubleshoot the political side, but it's not without the teachers trying.
We are done. Well, first, I want to say one thing real quick. Tagging on to what Dr. Wilson said last meeting, in 2006, the property tax was 0.3%. They upped, in this new funding model, they upped the sales tax by 1% and got rid of that 0.3%. Out of curiosity, I had Carly run the numbers. If the levy passes, we'll be paying 1.82% in property taxes. So if we go back to 2006, you'd be paying a lot more property taxes than what we're doing now. So we must be at a more efficient level than we were back then, because it was 0.3% and now it's 0.182%. Just a little tidbit. I thought that was interesting. All right, moving on. Let's call the meeting. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
public comments.
Ken, prayer?
I pray not to say we need prayer. I pray to say that we just need God. There are a lot of really well-intentioned people and hearts and minds in here that don't agree. Sometimes just don't ever agree. But God's got a way of working with that. And so That's why we like to call upon him to show up to these meetings and have a presence. So if you would pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that will affect the students, staff, faculty, and patrons of the school district. And continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Katie, appreciation.
I don't know the best place to stand is Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I want to say thank you very much for voting unanimously to keep the budget as was and to put forth a levy to the community. It took courage and conviction, and that's not the kind of leadership that we've seen from the board for a long time. And our school needed it very much. Our kids needed it very much. Thank you. There will be people who attack you on this. And in fact, I've seen some of that already happen. And when that happens, please remember that first and foremost, you made the morally correct and the logical decision to do this for our community. Second, please remember that you have passionate parents and patrons who back you on this and who are already taking action to help you see this through. And third, please remember that when someone knows they're in the wrong, they know deep down, and whether they're not ready to admit that to themselves or not, they usually resort to ad hominem attacks. And these can feel hurtful, but remember that they're crabs in a bucket, and they're looking to drag you down to their level and drag us along down to that level too. So let them be crabby. Their actions are speaking, their words are speaking for who they are, but your actions are showing who you are. Are you all parents? They can't comment? Okay. I hope you are, because it's been one of the greatest joys of my life to be a parent. My daughters are 2 years old and 1 year old. And if you remember that first time you held your kids, you know that joy that you felt, and that joy and that hope and excitement about what the future would hold for them. And you knew in that moment that you were changed forever, and you would do whatever you could to give your kid the best shot in life that you possibly could. Parenting, when done right, is years and years of planting trees that you will never enjoy the shade of. When you voted unanimously to put forth this levy without any additional budget cuts, you did what was right for the kids, and you planted a tree for our community. Thank you. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your leadership. And when those people come to try and knock you down, remember that you have the moral fortitude to do the right thing, and hopefully your leadership inspires them to follow along in your footsteps. Thank you for being a role model to all of our community and to our kids. Thanks.
Good. Moving on to approval of minutes. Or consent agenda. Do we need to make a motion to that? Anybody would make a motion to move on to consent agenda? Seconds?
Who made the motion? I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at my,
You will be punished for that.
I will, okay. And then who seconded?
Now ready? Approval of minutes? Oh, we're moving right on to.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, do we not need to have a vote on the motion, please?
They need to call for a vote.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
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 Reports? Swap and cruises.
I will, all
So have you guys signed the couple awards?
Right here, sir.
Superintendent report. Here we go.
Okay, I'm going to give these to Lacey, 3 of them. And she can take them back, 2 of them home, and we'll get the other one down to Clearwater Valley Junior Senior High School. Starting with Peter Fabi, 98-pound medalist, 6th place in the Idaho State Wrestling Tournament. And Megan Myers, who she knows very well. If I have this correct, 138-pound, 6th place Idaho State Girls Wrestling Tournament. Congratulations for the 195 2A Idaho State champion, Bass Myers.
Nice.
That answers your question,
Good for you.
Anything on my report?
Thank you for the detail.
Okay.
Moving on.
I'm good if you are. I just want to answer questions if you have them.
Principals reports.
Is it okay if I stand here? Will that work? Okay. I'm Jessica Robinson. I am the principal at Grangeville Elementary and Middle School. We are a K-8 school with about 560 students, if you were not aware. Sometimes parents are surprised, even when their children have been at that school, how many kiddos we have. We have had some really amazing academic things happening for us. We decided to go back to having the honor roll. I've been focusing on grades. I really focus on low grades a lot because I'm always trying to talk to kids about how to improve their grade, what do they need to do, what plan do they have? And I thought, I need to go look at what my kids are doing well in. So for my 7th and 8th graders, we started doing the honor roll again. And students who had a 3.3 to a 4.0, my 7th graders ended up having 65% of their class on the honor roll last semester. I was very impressed by that. My 8th graders were a little bit lower with 58% on that list. 8th grade's a tough year. And I do a lot of coaching with those kiddos. It's a big identity year. So I'm really just trying to put a focus back on their grades. And a lot of times it has to do with assignment completion and not getting behind. So definitely coaching on that. My 4th graders are learning about Idaho State history. That's what they do in 4th grade. Lewis and Clark is a big part of that, which is exciting because I grew up in California. So I love learning more about it with the students. They put on a big play, the Lewis and Clark play. It's awesome. They just finished up. But to prepare them for that play and to give them more experience with their studies, we actually had Charbonneau. He is, I just forgot the guy's, Gary Bush. He came to our school and pretended to be Charbonneau, and the kids ate it up. And he goes across several states, and he was saying that our students were the best behaved audience he has ever had. So that was a really cool compliment from him. I did include some pictures in the board report. One of the biggest things that in my own personal life, but also for the culture of our school, I'm about gratitude, making sure that we find the things that are, to be thankful for, finding things to be thankful for. And our bus drivers are definitely people that we are thankful for. It is a difficult job. I don't even like to drive with my own children in the car because on those difficult snowy days, it takes a lot of focus. And so what we did is we created signs, posters, and one day when they rolled up to the school, we were cheering for them, and it actually brought tears to some of their eyes. So it was really special for the children to get to show appreciation for our bus drivers. Another really fun thing that we've been doing is when sports teams make state at the high school, we have them come over to our school, GEMS is what we call it, and I don't know if you guys ever realized Grangeville Elementary and Middle School says GEMS. I think that is really neat. So this time, last month, we had the girls basketball team and the cheerleading team come to our school, and they do a parade through the halls. And all the students in the school come out of the doors, we line the hallways, and we cheer for them. And you have to think, some of these students who are in high school started in kindergarten at our school. So it just kind of brings them back to when they were little, and to show respect to them is a lot of fun for our younger students. I have an educator highlight. Mrs. Godfrey's kindergarten class, iStation is what we use for the Idaho Reading Indicator. And her kindergarten class in the month of January, February, and March had 80% or more proficiency in that class. 80% is our goal, and we're starting to see it in kindergarten. With our new reading curriculum that we just adopted last year, I had a feeling that we were going to start seeing it in kindergarten first, and that is definitely where I'm starting to see it, and I cannot wait for our students to have those foundational skills to continue to build, and so our scores continue to improve. Another very exciting thing is that we had several students put their essays into a contest, the Americanism Essay Contest, and our area goes from Riggins all the way up to Potlatch, and 5 out of the 6 students who were awarded were from GEMS. That was so impressive. We were so proud of them. So the topic was what Memorial Day means to me. I need to get my hands on those essays so that I can post them, so that you guys will have a chance to read them. And then last but not least, another one of our 4th grade teachers was entered into our Imagine Math. It's kind of a supplemental thing that we have through Idaho. It's paid for through the state, a math online program that kind of meets kids where they're at. So everybody gets work right where they're at on this platform. And Mrs. Yagi's class won the contest for completing the most assignments in the month of February, so they were actually recognized on the Imagine Math website. So our teachers work so hard every day. They aren't just teaching, they are emotional supports. They hear very difficult things that students are going through, and it is a difficult job, but we all give our hearts 100% to these kids every day. So I am so proud to share with you guys all of the great things that are happening at our school. Thank you.
Any other reports?
None.
I can certainly give you a report. You have my report. Are there any questions about the report that I gave? If you just want a little couple neat things I'd like to share about. So the principals of Coralville Elementary and Elk City Elementary, we had something kind of special this last week ago. We had the dental health program come to CVE. So we had the Elk City kids took a field trip, came up and visited us for the day at Elk City or at Kuski, and so that was fun for them. And they were able to get their dental health screening as well as be a part of the classroom at CVE. And we also have vape education training, not education, but hopefully prevention training. So we did that for our 6th through 12th grade students. But in our school at elementary level, we did it 5th and 6th grade for these last 3 days. And so that has been very helpful. And I think hopefully we'll see some prevention there. Our teachers are working really hard, again, on that amplified curriculum. Just like Jessica said, we're really noticing a very big impact on our kindergarten students. And we're seeing it across the board, but especially at that kindergarten level. So we're hoping that that foundation will continue with the new curriculum that we've just adopted. Very proud of our Title I crew. They have been working super hard to implement this new intervention program that goes with this amplifier reading program, and they've been working very, very hard to implement that. So we're seeing some progress there too. So good stuff going on. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to thank both of you guys. Yeah, sorry. I don't normally talk about my individual kids, but my 12-year-old son struggles in reading, and he would rather be out camping and in the woods than reading. So this year, though, he went from a 90 in reading to 160 yesterday, and I feel like a large part of that is the curriculum. Well, a large part of it is this amazing teacher this year, truly, she's incredible, but also the curriculum that he's been provided this year. So I don't have a struggle with him going to school anymore, and I think the curriculum and amazing teachers really contribute to that. So thank you to both principals.
Move on. Special education report.
Hello. Well, I don't have as many exciting things to talk about, so I apologize for that. Firstly, we kind of came to terms with the fact that we used to have a school psychologist, and her name was Danny Blackwell, and then she left our district and moved out, and left and went to a different district. And since then, we've had an online psychologist, and I have to say that she does really well. We're very happy with her. However, we realized that we hadn't really been overseeing the 504 process in the district to make sure it was unified from school to school, or that we had procedural safeguards, or that we were following the exact same policies. And so I decided to take that over. So I'm going to be the coordinator for the 504s, just to make sure that we do that legally and ethically correctly. I didn't realize how different it was from building to building, but it is coming to my attention, so that is something I've taken on. Just today, I started speaking with the Department of Health and Welfare about a resource fair for students with disabilities, so their parents can come in and speak to different organizations in our community so that they can find some support and what resources are available for them. So that is something that I'm working on with the Department of Health and Welfare and Nicole down at GEMS, and we don't have a current full-time counselor down at CVE, but I will work with Erin down there also. Voc Rehab is about to kick off, and Voc Rehab is a program we started last year, and we do it through GHS, but kids from either community are welcome to come, and we provide job coaching, and then they get jobs in the communities in which they live, and Voc Rehab pays for their wages at those positions. It pays for paraprofessionals to go with them to their positions to help train them on site. Voc Rehab also comes to schools and tells kids about different occupations that they can have, and helps fund them getting those educations. So we've been working with them for the last 2 years, and this year we actually have some homeschool kids that want to participate, which is great because it's a free program. We're just a gateway to let kids come in and participate. Just a heads up, we've had a big increase in high-need special education students in the last 3 weeks, so that is just something to keep your eyes on the prize as far as our budget. We are ready for ISATs. All of our accommodations are in, and I think we're ready to go there. And now for the good news. So we have down at GEMS a lift, and the lift is used for a wheelchair access to the stage, and the lift is quite old, and we actually got it from CV. They had it first, and then they don't have a child that uses a wheelchair right now, so we've been using it at GEMS. But yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago now, there was a concert, and of course on that day the lift stopped working, and so we don't have a lift currently that works to put that student up on the stage, which is of course gets us out of compliance with ADA, which is Americans with Disabilities Act. And so we've been researching how we might pay for or fix or replace said lift. Obviously, it would be less expensive to fix the lift, although it is quite old. And so Rick has been able to get his hands on a manual off the internet for the older device, and he is hopefully going to be able to fix it, but if he doesn't, that's going to cost around $7,000. But, good news, this led me to thinking about the fact that the student that uses a wheelchair will soon be at GHS. And the wheelchair accessible lift that goes up and down the stairs at GHS is, well, I think it might be the same one that was there when I went to GHS. And that might tell you something. And so, but I'm not sure about that, but it is quite old. So we've kind of gone over and looked at it, Jared and Ty and I, and it takes a couple minutes to go up, and it takes a couple minutes to come down, and there's a ramp that has to fall forward so that a wheelchair can go onto the ramp, and then we have to start talking about, say a student needs to go up and down the ramp 5 times a day, and then they have to miss 3 minutes of class every time, and then that's 15 minutes a day of missed instruction. At 4 days a week is an hour. At 39 weeks is 40 hours of instruction. Now, I don't know if you know, but that's illegal. So, like, we have to think about, so we have a year to plan this out and talk about it. And Ty and Jared and I are working on looking at the options. But one thing I'd like you just to think about would be that maybe an elevator, while more expensive, definitely more expensive, would probably be a way better investment, because say you just happen to have 2 kids that had wheelchairs. I mean, then also just consider how much a $40,000 lift is and the lifespan of that lift versus maybe an elevator that doesn't require you to replace. So I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, but I am asking you to wrap your head around some cost issues that might be facing us before the end of next year, because they're real, and it's a 2-story building, and that's not going to change. And especially if you're going to start putting more people into that building, which I pray that you are not. Like, I want the levy to pass, all of that, but it's just a lot to wrap your brains around. So that's my positive thing for the night, is that we don't have to buy it today. Thank you.
Moving on to federal programs report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about 2 things tonight. I'll talk first about federal programs. So yesterday we completed the audit of our programs here. State auditors came and we went through a long list of requirements and all of the indicators that we are required to submit to show that we are complying with all of the regulations that come with the federal programs dollars. And I really would love to thank Carly, all the rest of the district office staff, our building principals, secretaries, counselors, just absolutely everyone who participated in the process of getting things in order. Last year when we went through the process, all of us were new, and we simply didn't have enough knowledge or access to information to actually complete an audit. So the State Department was very supportive and gave us a roadmap for how to accomplish that this year. I'm really happy to say that we didn't pass with flying colors, but we were super close. And so any of the work that we have left to do, we will begin right away in May and in June, and then throughout next year, building all of the systems that we need to have in place and just finalizing the program so that it works well for us and for all of the students that receive support through those programs. Carly is going to be my assistant for this next portion. I appreciated hearing the discussion related to our ELA curriculum, which was adopted last year, and the positive results we are all seeing. The students are enjoying the curriculum, having fun activities that go along with it, science experiments, just all sorts of interesting and mind-stimulating opportunities for them. One of the favorite pieces of feedback I hear is from teachers who say, I learned something about something I never knew before. And so the teachers are also learning right along with the students. So in that vein, and in relation to comments made about assessment scores, which is really only a part of what we should be considering when we talk about our students, I want to update the board and everyone in the room about the status of math curriculum and the review that we're going through and the pending adoption of new math curriculum. One thing I would like to remind you about, I've talked about it in the past, is that we have been without Tier 1 ELA curriculum at the K-5 level for over a decade. The same is true for math, and so that hole definitely needs to be filled. And in addition to that, we want to bring our middle school and our high school curriculum up to par with the innovations in math instruction so that we're with the times. Okay. This graphic gives you a sense of kind of the three buckets that the state of Idaho has as their overarching goals for mathematics learning, 2021 and beyond. Try to move around a little bit so I'm not in anybody's way. I'm not sure if the audience can see it well. Grade level content. So having on grade level mathematics content must be the focus of our students' work. Equitable, effective teaching practices. Position all students as competent, confident, and capable learners and doers of mathematics. Advocacy. Engage in work that supports all students' equitable access to high quality, meaningful mathematics. The state of Idaho has been working on updating the way math instruction happens. Idaho core instructional shifts in mathematics, there are 3 of them. And you can equate that to student achievement partners. The first one is focus. The second one is coherence. In this one, we're trying to keep the learning spiraling across the grade levels. The third one is rigor. The issues that lead to rigor, fluency, that's accuracy and speed of repetition with core functions. But the focus is on accuracy, not so much speed. Deep understanding so that students are accessing competencies or concepts from varied perspectives, being able to apply those to any new situation, and they learn how to write and speak about their understanding of math. That might be a little different than some of you remember learning math when you were in school. Applying what they learn in real-world situations, integrating math concepts across all the content areas. So not only do our math teachers teach math, our science teachers teach math, our social studies teachers teach math, our ELA teachers teach math. Dual intensity, a good balance between practicing the skills, applying the skills, with guides on the side. Board members, in my packet, I gave you this. The state updated it, and I received it yesterday in a meeting that I attended, so I'm going to give you a new copy. Thank you. That's okay. We can all read, and I will not read through all of these slides, but the highlight here is that these are high-impact teaching practices that are meant to engage students to be able to achieve all of the mathematical standards described by the state of Idaho. I'll just leave that there for a moment and I can browse those words. Good. Carly said we're done with that one. Another portion of the changes is that student-centered teaching practices are kind of a focus. Teachers don't just stand in front of the room and write down an algorithm and say, memorize this and do this, kids. So there are 8 standards for mathematical practice. Making sense of problems and persevering is number 1. Modeling. I think I've heard comments like, I can't do this new math with my children. I don't know what this is. Models are just a way of representing what students understand about how the numbers are working. Different models work for different students. It's okay to let them explore with that. Learning how to use the right tools, being precise. And then 5 practices for orchestrating productive math discussions. This innovation makes all the difference in a math classroom. Students work together on problems. They talk about how they view the problem, what they think the problem is, how they might approach solving it, and they talk with each other about their ideas. They teach each other how they individually think about numbers. They learn from each other. So it's a teacher's job to watch that happening, anticipate what's going on in the groups. Make some decisions as they're teaching. Find a good model for a group that has done a good job. Show the others. Help students make connections. That's what math instruction looks like in classrooms. This graphic is more related to our secondary and our high school students. We call it the Idaho Math Transitions. So what you're looking at here, and I know that it's very small and probably difficult to see, is a new approach to, excuse me for a second, new approach to providing mathematics courses for our secondary students. The goal behind it is to offer students opportunities to take various math courses that will keep them in math all 4 years of high school, even though Idaho only requires 3. To give all students, not just those that are tracking to four-year college, university, or STEM programs, the opportunity to earn dual credits in math while in high school. Dual credit means that you take a high school course from a certified teacher that will allow you to simultaneously earn college credits for that class. To offer an alternative to traditional Algebra 2 courses, which are not always the best fit for many students. To maintain rigor across all the courses that were offered, and to reasonably integrate everyone into grade level math courses. So that means we're going to work at including our special education students in these classes as well. This is going to take time and effort and dedication from our teachers and our students to prepare them to make this transition. Point out here that all 9th graders will take Algebra 1. All 10th graders will take geometry. And when you get to grade 11, you get to choose a path that best suits your personal goals. And then you're not stuck on the path. You can hop to another path if you change your mind along the way. So the paths are focused in some areas, for example, an arts, trades, communications path, maybe a health, business, social sciences class, and then the one on the right is more of the STEM fields. That's pretty much my presentation for all of you this evening. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer, or please feel free to call me or stop by
Could I say something?
the district office. You may.
So in keeping with that, we've been working on this kind of together, but one of the things we noticed in our discussions with the math group yesterday, and just in general, when we look at textbooks in different ways, is that we have historically not done a great job of getting special education kids to graduate with a regular diploma. So the difference is a standard diploma requires you to have passed Algebra 1 and geometry to get that diploma and to have 3 credits of math. At the high school level, we see a lot of kids who are taking resource room math. That is not best practice for those kids long term. Your income potential goes up exponentially. Your opportunity to go into schools of trade and have good jobs goes up when you aren't in resource room math. So we are looking at ways and working with the teachers with those pathways to try to find inroads for kids that are now kind of set up to not be successful in this new way we're thinking by providing courses taught by general education math teachers to the special education kids to give them those steps to get them back into the general education courses so that they too can graduate by the end of their 4 years with a standard diploma, which allows them to be able to go into the military or to have access to associate's degrees and all sorts of other avenues that they may not have had in the past because we weren't working collaboratively like we should have been, where we trust each other, where the special ed teacher trusts the general ed teacher, where the general ed teacher works with the special ed teacher, they co-teach, they work to accommodate within the special ed and the general education classroom, they find accommodations that work but don't lessen, and that's our goal, is to get the special ed kids back on track as well to get into these pathways again.
You made me think of a couple of other things too. So in relation to that, we all know that we need to be able to provide our teachers with proper training so that they're prepared to take in small groups of special education students into their classrooms with or without additional support. And the students themselves at our middle school level we need to make the transition there first, so that they're coming up into the high schools better prepared to make that step into an integrated classroom. And one other thing I had meant to mention throughout this process was that these are all of the things that our curriculum adoption team is thinking about as they're reviewing these curriculum options. And we're not going to pick something that doesn't help us get to this point.
And you know, the beautiful thing about this is we have, just for example, our middle school special ed teacher is actually a 612 math teacher. She's certified to do math, so she has a vision of how we can integrate that starting in the 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, so that by the time kids get to high school, yes, maybe they need a pre-algebra class, but they can get that algebra, that geometry, and then maybe a financial math so that they can be financially independent and have access to the same content that everyone else has, instead of historically putting them into content in the resource room and assuming they cannot accomplish it. Instead, with accommodation and working with those special ed and that general ed math teacher, we have a lot of great math teachers at the high school level and at the middle school who want to make this possible. So it's exciting. It's exciting. And I forgot something else. And that is, I need you to adopt a special education manual as a board, because you're new, you have new people on the board. And so the state of Idaho requires the school board to say that they will adhere to the special education manual as an entity. And last year I offered it to you, but no one wanted to take a look at the special education manual. It's about 200 pages long. It was last updated, I think, in 2018 or 16. It's old. What I do know is that they are updating it this summer because the state of Idaho Special Education Manual has been found to be in conflict with the United States Department of Education special education requirements. So we're going to adopt it tonight if you all agree, and then we will.
We can't adopt that tonight.
Why
It's
not?
not an agenda item.
Legally.
Can we do it next month?
I'd love to read that once the
It can
revisions
go
are out.
on next month.
We know that.
I would love you to read it. I've had, okay.
Cannot.
Would anybody like to have a copy of it?
If they're gonna revise everything, I don't see the point.
Okay, we were supposed to adopt it in January, but I was sick, and then in February I was sick, and now it's March.
Right there.
It needs to be an agenda.
Can you put on April?
Do you want to write it on the whiteboard?
I can write it on the whiteboard.
There we go.
We need to. So, does anybody want a copy of it between now and then? Because I would happily give you that if you're interested in the 200 pages.
I would.
I have one out in the hallway. I will get it to you before you leave. Thank you, sir.
Moving on to the technology report. Students.
Hi guys. Yeah, so last month I talked a little bit about the cybersecurity thing, trying to implement Boise State working with us. There's going to be a lot of paperwork, of course. So it's going to be a little bit longer process than I had hoped, but I'm hoping before the end of the school year to have that done, to get away from that current antivirus and just start handing off cybersecurity to BSU. For those who weren't there, the university students will help manage the cybersecurity. We'll be one of the first schools, if it goes through, to have that, which is really exciting. Securing our future phase 1 grant implementation is progressing with the help of Ty Reuter, who's been helping me with actually doing most of the cabling, and getting some installers from CompuNet in there, and we're getting cameras up and live. So GEMS is fully installed and still configuring a couple cameras, but it's almost there. GHS is now finished and ready to go, so we're working on scheduling camera installs there. And then also getting down to the CV schools. Along with that, securing our future phase 2 grant got submitted with the help, actually mostly the GEMS admin team, Jessica and Nicole and others. And so hoping to get a new intercom system in GEMS, because currently it's non-existent in the primary building. And anyways, but we were able to tap and tone some speakers, and actually I'm going to try to reuse some of the speakers in the building and reuse some of the cabling and try to kind of patch together to save on funds and put a even more robust system in GEMS if we win that grant. So we're just hoping for that one. Went ahead and also tested the Clearwater Valley intercom system, Oh, wow. I played classical music and AC/DC came out, so literally I was trying to tone it and it was just so many loops. I couldn't even track them all in the system. It was really unfortunate. So long and the short of it is, for me to repair that, that would be my full-time job. So we're going to be looking at replacing it, which is unfortunate. I was able to patch it together, so it's going to keep working, and that's what we've been doing for a long time. But yeah, here in the future, we're going to have to pretty seriously consider how we can get that replaced. There are grants that possibly could.
Which school?
CV High. Elementary is replaced. CVE is our only school currently with a, basically it's like a VoIP intercom system, but it's a network-based intercom system. Everything else is legacy. They call it legacy. It's not like, wow, that's older than me, so I don't know. Sorry. No, legacy just means it's analog, just hardwired. But I'm trying to tie the systems together so that our staff can use the new technology, but not, we don't have everything on the internet. So trying to balance that out. Yeah, so exploring another grant opportunity, trying to get the displays replaced in our classrooms. I've had like 4 projectors, bulbs burn out in the last, since we talked. So it's like, wow, this is getting expensive, and why are we replacing old technology that's not working as well, when we could be getting new. So that's probably next year thing, but I am looking into grants how we could replace that technology. We're trialing docking stations, getting desktops out of the classroom so that teachers can just bring their teacher laptops in, set them on the desk, plug in, and they're connected to their whole setup without having to manage a desktop and a laptop. It simplifies. The teachers who have trialed it so far like it. I'm engaging some of the teachers, see if tomatoes are thrown or something, but everybody's liked it so far, and it's cost effective, and I think it'll be helpful. It takes out the desktop replacement factor that I mentioned last month. It's a better solution. So, yeah, I'm sure there's more, but that's the main stuff.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, financial report.
Okay, so as I've kind of started doing with my financial reports, I just like bringing up our website to just once again remind you guys where you can find this. So I have a nice little financials tab at the top of our website. And down here, I have my board reports, and we are in the 23-24 year, and we are talking about the end of February. So it starts with my financial Q&A. This has not changed much besides just obviously the monthly update. So that's nothing new or too exciting. I just recently added, I've been adding it to the board packet, but I just recently started adding it to my board reports on the website because again, I kind of like to trial and error it with the board for a little bit before I add it to the website to make sure kind of all my hiccups are worked out. So this first part is our revenue budget that was presented last year for this current school year. And then I have our amount from July to the end of February of actual income and what the percentage of the budget has hit so far. So those are updated through, again, the end of February, and that is also the same situation with our expenditures. So first is the budget, then the actual expenditures year to date, and the percentage of the budget that has been utilized so far. The next one, those are just percentages that reflect our expenses. The next one, and I just briefly kind of started talking about this, and I think I just need to keep expanding. Again, I think since about November, I've really just tried to step up my financial report. And we focus so much on the general fund because obviously it is the bread and butter of our school district. It's what allows us to do our maintenance and operations and normal functioning. we have so many other funds, that I kind of briefly talked about at that Monday special board meeting the other week. And they equal about just under $9 million. It includes, this is not the full list of them, but it includes forest funds, or really what they're referred to by the state, and what I should start calling them is SRS, which is Secure Rural Schools. I think forest funds is just kind of everyone's go-to, because it really started out decades ago kind of as timber money, and so it just got that nickname. But really, I really should start focusing on calling them their proper name, which is Secure Rural Schools. We also have our child nutrition program, which is our food services. We have the remainder of our ESSER 3, also known as our COVID money. That middle row reflects our title funds and our IDEA, or special education distribution. And then the bottom is our bus depreciation, and again, property tax relief is what it's referred to, but technically per the state, it's our school facility funds. And so that's that $407,000 that hit in August and has been accruing interest. What I am working on, and I just got a brief template of it this afternoon, I had a community member call, and I kind of liked her idea, and I wanted to run with it in a few aspects, but I want to be able to mimic this and my expenditures. Well, I'm gonna actually go to what was presented to the board, so it's a little bit more clean. I want to mimic this with our other funds. So again, right now, it's our general fund. It breaks it out by our state support entitlement and our salary-based apportionment. So instead of those line items, I'd want the first one to say Secure Rural Schools, and then reference the fund number that is required by the state. So Secure Rural Schools is Fund 220. The next one would be our Student Activity Fund, or 238. And so on and so forth. Again, we have about 17, I want to say. And then instead of earmarked by state or federal, it would say beginning balance, because there are a handful of these extra funds. I want to go back down. Nope, I'm in the wrong tab. Back down here, there's some like our SRS funds that have a beginning balance. And then I would, in this column, have new funds. And so you would see, like, hypothetically, this first line would say Secure Rural Schools. It would say the beginning balance, or the anticipated balance for the beginning of the school year. And then I've budgeted for about $1 million to come in for our annual deposit. And then this last column would be the total of what would be in the fund for the year in revenue. And then on the next page, I want to kind of mimic it, and again, have Secure Rural Schools. And then this is the part that I was hung up on, and that's why I didn't present it tonight, because again, I like to make sure that I get my thoughts in order. I didn't know if I wanted to just go with expenditures, or if I wanted to have, like, bring down the total revenue side, and so say revenue, and then expenses, and then ending fund balance. So I'm playing around with that. But again, this is just kind of where I'm evolving, because we focus so much on the general fund, or again, our maintenance and operation fund, that these other ones, while super, super important, kind of get lost in the shuffle. The title ones allow us to support our general fund in the sense of additional staff and additional support to our students, and that's huge. The IDEA ones, again, support general fund in the sense that it not eliminates, that's a bad word, I apologize. It supports about 7.5 of our special education paras that, if it wasn't for this, would be coming out of our general fund. And so there's so many of these funds that are important to also highlight and acknowledge that are benefiting this school district, that again, sometimes I apologize, I get wrapped up so much in M&O, because I mean, again, that is definitely the forefront right now. But those are just kind of my goals for potentially next month's report. Again, just kind of keep expanding. Sometimes I don't want to go too much too fast, like I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but I also, I mean, there's a lot of information. It's hard to limit it, so I want to give you as much without being overwhelming as I can. The next item I kind of worked on, it is a running balance of our Secure Rural Schools account. I have heard over the last couple of months a lot of questions about it. Not only what it or how much it's gotten to in a running balance, but also like how has it been used and what kind of interest does it earn and what is the annual deposit? So I apologize. I know I'm super spreadsheet heavy. I'm like I gotta get away from it. Although at the same time I don't want to. I love them. So what I did was I went back to 2012, the beginning of the 2012-2013 school year. Our balance in SRS funds was $4.4 million. And so what I kind of mimicked throughout the whole, the remaining decade that to present is I said the annual deposit that hits anywhere between March and June, or May in the year, and then I combined all the expenditures that happened. So for a while there was direct expenses coming out of the account, whereas right now we've been focusing on a transfer to our general fund to zero out the budget at the end of the year, because normally at the end of the year, general fund's in the negative, and then so we make that a journal entry to zero it out. Again, referencing back to, I want to go here, to this amount. So projected transfer of, again, I should rename it, to Secure Rural Schools, or from it, that 3.136 million, that was referenced in the November levy amount. But, so that 3.136 million, the transfer allows us to balance our budget. So anytime you see transfer here, that's what it's meaning. And then again, interest throughout the year. So the balance at the beginning of the 13-14 school year was 4.8. And I just kind of continued throughout. I kind of made little notes about the direct expenditures that came out of the account. Like, so this 24,000, it included software licenses and CDHS facility costs. This 313,000 includes software systems, building improvements, lock and security camera project, and buses. And so again, I also made some notes over here. So the levy amount for the 12-13 school year was almost 3 million. And so just for giggles, I thought it would be interesting to see what the levy, the expenditures, and the transfer, because again, that all supports the general fund, equaled, and that's this $3.182 million amount. I was trying to find a trend in it to see if it was close to our levy amounts, and gosh darn it, it is. Again, I just kind of keep going through it. I'll kind of catch us up to these current years. So 2020 happened, that's a COVID year. That's also the last year that we had levy money coming in. So we passed a levy in May of 19 for the 19-20 school year. And then we failed the next 4. And so from there, you can see that our transfers got bigger. And we started utilizing our ESSER, again, COVID money. And then since I've come on, we haven't had direct expenditures out of here. I just, personally, I feel like it's a cleaner presentation to show our general fund expenditures all coming out of general fund and then having the transfer at the end of the year to zero it out. So that's just kind of a preference of mine. These anticipated amounts down here, this is for this school year. Again, I have budgeted about $1 million coming in for our annual deposit from the SRS funds. As you can see, it's It's just roughly been over $1 million the last 2 years. Prior to that, it was just under $1 million, and prior to that, it was 1.1. So I felt like $1 million was a pretty safe bet. Again, no expenditures. This transfer, I will once again reference 3.136634, and that matches right there. So, and then the anticipated interest, so year to date, or I should say year through February, if I go back here, that shows right there, $129,000 already made in interest in the SRS account that we have in our local government investment pool. And so for March's, April, May, and June's interest amount, I'm just estimating $183,000. And so again, if we utilize that full $3.136 million to balance our budget, it leaves us with 1.7. So again, I thought that was just important information. I'll kind of keep expanding on this. It's so hard to just lump it into one evening or one conversation or a 15, oh gosh, how long have I been talking already? 10, 15-minute conversation, but I just want to keep evolving it. And that is definitely my goal. Other than that,
I want to make a comment on that.
Yes, please.
It looks like for years, that budget, that balance, they always kept it between 4 and 6.
Yeah.
Never want to drop below 4, and then once it got to 6,
they kind of like started
spending
spending.
I mean, was there an unspoken, and this is before my time, and your time as well,
Exactly.
unspoken idea that, hey, 5 million is the sweet spot, or is there any justification for that?
I think your guess is as good as mine. As you said, we're both after this time. It kind of, again, I like to find trends. You found the trend I have found. It does kind of seem like maybe as low as 4.2. Again, potentially that auditor's reference of keeping 1.5 to 3 months worth of expenditures. This is just slightly more than 3 months. It's closer to 4. It's just under 4 months. So maybe that is the case. Anyone else that was here? Okay, we're all new. Cool.
All right, anyway.
So, no, great observation. I like this because it did point out some trends. I thought it was interesting. So, other than that, I apologize. I should have stopped and asked for questions. Other questions that relate to the SRS or my kind of updated financial report. So another thing that I've been trying to do is just emphasize or clarify items that I've heard since the last board meeting. I do appreciate, I apologize, I didn't catch your name. I also noticed kind of the odd title in the paper, and I wanted to just emphasize that as well. 2-year levy at $2.936 million each year. It's not total. Another item that came into play, another community member called and they said, we should be taxing the farmers. And I went, oh, the farmers' land does get taxed, so I just wanted to point that out. All property in the district does get the same tax rate if the levy were to pass, including farmland. The difference is just really in the market value versus home versus farmland. So for comparison, if it's like a grain field, like 300 acres is roughly equivalent to, well, I guess it completely depends on the house, but like 20 acres of homestead. And so I kind of was working with the county on that to just emphasize again that all property in the district gets the same tax rate applied to it. It's just the difference in the market value. So I didn't want that getting misconstrued. Another item that I thought was important to start talking about was I've already been working on my levy presentation, And I've thought of some dates. I'm completely happy doing them on my own, or if board members want to be there. I was really tickled with the turnout last October. I thought they were beneficial. Like, again, anytime I do one of these presentations, I always feel like I learn more and I grow in my job. I've been kind of thinking about, I also had another community member reach out and mention for at least the CB area, potentially thinking about a different location. They thought that while the school allows me to have a decent presentation avenue, they were like, maybe if we hold it in kind of a neutral area. They talked about how even though it's a school, a lot of people could consider it government, or and they were just thinking if we could find a neutral one. So I'm playing around with that. I mean, obviously it is to benefit the schools. Again, I have my setup at the schools. But my thought is, once again, doing multiple presentations at CB, multiple presentations here in Grangeville. I'd love to go down to Elk City again anytime I can escape down there. I just enjoy. The Whitebird one wasn't like terribly attended, so or well attended, so I don't know. I'm kind of playing around with that. There was also other conversations about maybe the Harpster Clearwater area. So with that in mind, obviously the 3 locations where our schools are, but a 4th one up in the air. So my dates that tentatively I think align well with still giving time before the levy and getting the information out about how to early vote or absentee vote. I was thinking April 22nd, April 24th, May 1st, and May 6th. Those just kind of felt like good times for me, but again, I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
What were you gonna share at these meetings?
Sorry, I put on a levy presentation. It is also.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't know what I'm showing up for.
Carly, did you say May?
May 6th, May 1st and May 6th. So also, again, on our school website, I still have left it up. I have my 24-25 levy presentation for the November 7th election. It will mimic a lot of this, but I've updated a little bit, and I want to include some tidbits from my budget workshops. I think that will be important.
What do you think if, like, each constituent, or each trustee just went to the ones that they are the representative for?
I would be just fine with that. Again, I'm more than happy, whoever wants to show up.
I can just see Kelsey in the paper when we want to go from trustees.
Yep, if we all agree on that.
I would ask you to schedule one in Whitebird if you can. I know you're kind of spread out, but I'd like to join you.
For sure.
Yeah, if you guys do this, your area, I won't pay for the forum.
I'll send those, when I get them more established, I'll send them out, I'll include Lori, so we could get it in the paper, and I'll put, something on the website, with the dates and locations, the locations I hadn't figured out yet.
Preliminarily, correct. Yes, thank you.
Yep. You know, and I'm not like Amanda, I'm not ending on a high note, I'm ending on a low note. You guys have heard through the reports, things are coming up. The $2.936 million levy is to keep us status quo. It does not include an elevator. It does not include technology updates. Yes, Michael is being wonderful about looking into grants, and we've even looked into how we could potentially get a grant for the lift. I have no idea if there's an elevator grant, but
I'm still looking, I'm looking hard.
yeah, I mean, grants are wonderful, and if we get them, great, but if we don't, it is more. And we gotta figure that out somehow, so keep that in mind. While the $2.936 million keeps us status quo, if it passes, eventually we will have projects that come up and we will need more. So it will be potentially in the future a $2.936 million for M&O, and then $100,000 for an elevator, and then $100,000 for a roof, and then and so like you see what I mean. There's things that will come up because we can only stay status quo for so long. So those reports remind you that technology evolves, and to keep up with it allows our students to a continuing education. Special education students come into the district and it grows our budget. There's all these items, we can only stay status quo for so long, so, the end.
Maybe by then, we'll have our Josh Paulson's thing or whatever will have gone through, and we'll have another alternative, another way we can go. But anyhow.
All right.
Thank you.
Any more comments?
Just Carly, you had
Yes.
said the market value of the parcel, but it's really the assessed value.
Thank you, Bea.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
I will add that.
Okay. Good. Moving on to business.
Oh, gotcha.
First item is approval of Jim's roof bids.
First, you want to do
Make the motion.
Nope, first you want to do the gym room, so you have to present your gym.
Jim roof bid?
All right, so we had a conversation at the February board meeting about how the maintenance team came together, and again, as I mentioned, roofs are coming into play, and we have some that are in need. We have we have budgeted in our COVID money that I was referencing earlier, maintenance expenses. And so one of the items that we really felt as a maintenance team and as a district office that needed to be addressed, and representing both locations, they said really the GEMS roof on the gym and then the GEMS roof on their primary building are the highest concerns. So we put out a bid. We did get 3 responses of, we would love to submit a bid, we just unfortunately can't fit it in your time frame. We're wanting it done this summer, and so we got 3 notices of that, and so that left us with only 1 bid. So roof A, or the first bid we went over, was the gym, and that bid came in at $151,000. Oh, yes, so sorry, and this is prepared by Red Line General Construction.
Red Line General.
It's out of,
Rachel.
Any discussion on that? Do we need to approve it?
No, yes.
So we're just good to
I
go?
need a motion if you're
We,
gonna do it.
we wanna do the primary roof as well, do them both?
Nope, let's do your
Gym roof.
gym roof first.
Anybody want to make a motion on that? Bid?
The total amount for the gym roof is 151.
For the GEMS gym roof.
Gym roof.
Say that 10 times fast.
And we only have 1 bid.
It's not in our packet though.
and legally that satisfies us.
Yeah.
No, they are not in the packet. Oh, okay, that's not gonna work. I
I'll
did not
go
have
ahead
them.
and move to accept that.
Wait a second.
We only got 1 bid?
There were 3
Requested
people that responded that they would love to, but our time frame just didn't fit their schedule.
That doesn't give us a legal issue regarding our bid.
We hit all of our requirements.
Good, thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Now, do we want to discuss?
Do we have a figure on the second one? Would that be fair to throw that in?
No, make 2 separate motions because they're 2 separate
Okay.
items.
All right,
Yep.
that's some good information.
Yeah, 2 separate things.
So, again, is it something that has to be done this summer?
Well, to utilize our COVID money,
It has to be done by this summer to utilize that money. Okay, well, that kind of answers that.
Okay. For me,
Because we had prepared for that.
this has been overdue.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to the primary roof.
And pretty much the almost exact same discussion. We called it roof B. It's also the primary roof. And that bid came in at $156,000
From Redline also.
also.
Which building is this?
The primary, the
K3.
Yeah.
So a section of gyms.
Part of it.
Does anybody know what they're warrantying the roof for, please?
It's a 30-year asphalt composition roof that we're putting on.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Nice, better than I thought we were gonna get.
Entertain a motion?
I had a question.
Oh, question.
I haven't looked at the actual fund, there's enough money in that COVID fund to cover, okay, that's all I needed. Then I'll move that we go ahead and move forward with this contract on that.
You have a second? Second.
Okay,
Any further discussion?
Wait, who's the second?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Are the roofs similar in size or?
Barry?
Yes. They're very close.
Very close. The primary building's just a little bit larger than the gym's gym.
Did these bids take into account any, I'll say unforeseen structural issues that
Yes.
they would specifically, okay?
They did a site inspection, they walked all the roofs.
Good. So
Yes.
they're trying to avoid surprises, right?
Yep.
And they did itemize out the list of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just haven't seen it, so.
No more discussion? Let's call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to approval of surplus items, custodial equipment. Need to talk about that?
What are we surplusing?
There should be a list in
There
there.
it is.
There's a list.
See that?
Yes, there's supposed to be a roof on the floor.
Didn't see it.
It looks like this.
Oh, okay. It's right here.
All that.
There we go.
You gotta turn your head sideways.
Yeah.
Are we getting new ones? Is that what's going on, or are they just getting
So,
rid of stuff that doesn't
I can
work?
answer that question. So the auto scrubber that's in there, so when we first got COVID dollars, we were able to purchase new auto scrubbers for the district. And this is the just equipment that was the old stuff, and we've had new stuff that replaced it. A lot of the other equipment that is in there, when we redid the flooring projects across the district with COVID dollars, we covered up any of our waxing floors. The rest of that custodial supplies that's in there is the stuff that we use to wax tile floors that we no longer wax, because we put a non-waxing floor on top of it.
Gotcha. I was just thinking.
Just a formality. Do we need to vote on that one as well? Motion? Motion on that?
I move that we surplus the custodial equipment as provided in the board's packet with respect to the items.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, pole barn contract.
I put something on your desk, but there's something else on the desk about the whole barn also.
Oh, right.
So I want to know where this is coming from. It was part of our Idaho Career Ready Student Grant. And Levi went out and got 3 bids. We looked at the bids, and we are recommending the 63,500 walleye construction here in Frankville.
That's this one.
That's that one.
So it's a grant.
Right.
of, not a pocket for us.
Well, we spend and get reimbursed.
Right, understood. Ultimately.
Total grant is 89,840, so this will do the barn. We have the wood miser coming. And then this describes how it will be a part of the career pathway that he's gonna be teaching for kids. We have Blake Manley come down from the University of Idaho. Idaho Forest Group is involved with this. We want to get some experiences for kids directly with how rubber's, milled and produced.
Where's that located, or been?
It's going to be east of the wood shop, front of the hill there.
What town?
Thoroughville.
Greenville?
Grangeville got that grant, and
Yeah.
then Kuski got another grant.
Right. This is for the pole barn and grant. This is for workforce training.
Yep.
Motion? Good.
So did they get the same amount of money? Mary
No,
Charlie
I
was
think
89.
89, and I think you guys got like 100 and something.
Okay.
120 or 60. And that's ultimately what that money is for, right?
Yeah, I put, the grant letter was similar, so I put the one from Clearwater Valley in instead of the one from Ringville.
They're boilerplate.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go ahead and move forward with that.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. All right, on to the superintendent contract. Is there any motion or discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I move that we offer Mr. Spock a one-year contract for the upcoming school year.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Discussion?
Go ahead and talk. Okay. You guys can talk, I can keep typing as you guys talk.
Any discussion? No discussion? Oh, call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, hold on, you gotta wait for me now.
So you need to say motion fails.
Motion
3 to 1,
failed.
3 to 2.
3 to 2, okay. Failed, 3 to 2. Okay. Next item, Budget Advisory Committee. Would you like to talk about it?
Well, this is, I just want to confirm we're on the same subject. This is what I was referring to as a working group.
Okay.
That was a question.
Yeah, I'm just gonna entertain the notion of, do we want a committee? What?
Well, it was my idea that it would be appropriate to have people who were not only had a particular interest, maybe perhaps you and I discussed geographically with respect to Clearwater Valley and the Grangeville area, a trustee from each of those areas, as well as our superintendent, and then a couple of community members to sit down and simply have a discussion and consider whether or not we want to forward a list of what the reductions in the district's expenses and budgeting would have to look like if the levy were not to pass. That's it in a nutshell. I think it's a wise way to do it, and how the process works itself out in terms of the distribution of the information once it gets to a conclusion with this body, would be for the board to decide.
My concern is I don't want to second guess what we've already decided. Would that imply that we're second guessing what we've already decided?
Have we decided on cuts?
Well, put it on the ballot.
Well, I think what the ballot's gonna represent, if I understand the legality of it, is what the levy is going to pay for. That's what the language of the law requires, so that to me is fundamentally different than a specific item for item, building by building, person, job description by job description list. That's, to me, that's not an issue that's actually been defined as well.
Any discussion or motion, or where do we go with this?
I think there's some value to that because getting into that levy and voting in May, if we have some more firm information about what all will have to be done. We had a lot of discussion here the last couple of months, but we never really put any hard numbers together. Well, I think everybody that attended has got a whole lot better view of what all is involved. But we still, when people realize what we will have to cut if this levy doesn't pass, I think that we'll actually move forward and to encourage that to be passed.
You want the definite list with the definite numbers.
Yeah, at least a number of them.
As we've been discussing
Yeah,
it.
we
But-
picked them, but we didn't really come up with any firm list of what we would cut. We talked about the numbers.
Did we go through a spreadsheet on the board together?
No.
My recollection is that we left it with an understanding that we were gonna adjust the language of the things that the levy would pay for to meet the broad categories of those things that would be considered. All right. I will mention though, because it comes up and Mr. Spot was helpful in getting this clarified, there was information out there for a long time that it was, to use the word loosely, illegal for us to tell you what might be cut or what would be cut if the levy didn't pass. And the thought behind that was it was unfairly coercive. That's not true. The law has no restrictions on us sharing that information. So that's what brought about, okay, well, if we're gonna do that, how do we go about doing that? So that's what this is about, okay?
So the advisory committee would be comprised of what?
We had discussed that you might represent the Clearwater Valley side, and that Mr. Harrington would do the Granger side.
And I don't know if I really want to go down this road, that's why I don't want to
My preference would be to have an organized, intelligent discussion by a small group who would forward some realistic, relatively hard, because it's all, as I've learned from our comptroller, where it's all about budget, it's all about projections and estimates many times. Nobody really knows exactly what the dollars are gonna be, so let's not kid ourselves, all right? And I just thought it would be helpful to have some kind of structure to that process that we could keep elevating the discussion. Because there was a lot of information shared at the last meeting and all the meetings we've had, which I thought was great. We're finally getting to that. I don't want to do that, but there was nothing definitive saying, okay, this is the plan, what do you think? That's what I'd like to get to. Out of respect to everybody that's gonna be involved, because all of us are gonna be impacted.
Larry, when do you want this done by?
Well, that's up to the board to decide. I don't have I'm just the idea guy here. I call it a working group. We can call it a budget advisory committee, I don't care what we call it.
I'd like to see some numbers come out that could be published or at least put out somehow before that vote in May. Because I think people need to know what we are gonna have to cut if this thing doesn't.
beyond what the cut list that we've discussed earlier.
Yeah, get into.
Not a cut list.
Whatever Larry wants to call it.
Well, whatever the law calls it is what we have to do.
Yeah, we've got general categories of what this is gonna cover.
Yeah.
If it does not pass, I think we need some specifics about what we're gonna have to remove from the school, the classes, whatever. And is it gonna be 100% inclusive? No, it probably won't be, and it won't be exact either, but it's gonna be some pretty solid numbers on what we're gonna have to do if this thing doesn't pass. If you were doing this at home, you would want that.
It's how you do it, yeah. And I agree, the community needs to know as close as we can get it, it's tough, it's really tough to put pinpoint numbers, but.
Yeah.
At the same time, you just say, go down.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
You can
Yeah,
say go vote.
that's exactly right. That's
Go
part of
vote,
it.
don't say how to vote,
Yeah.
just go vote.
Go vote.
Go vote, yeah. People need to realize, and again, we had good turnout, we had good discussions, had, a lot of great, comments come in from these meetings. One of the first times I think there's been that kind of communication between the school board and the community, and I don't know how long. But anyhow, we need to maintain that, but let's take that now to the next step, and, all right, if this doesn't go, we will have to do this, and we will have to do this.
And I would
That's what
add
we're
to
trying
what
to
Mr. Meadows said, and that is not only, all of that part of the picture, but I think people have a right to know.
Yes.
Oh, for sure, I mean, as much as we
That's just
can.
my understanding, right?
When is the ballot due to the county?
It's in,
It's a
it's
regular.
in, it's done, we can only work within those parameters, because we already decided that. So,
So I don't have a problem with your advisory committee, but there are certain things that, you might come up with, or a community member might come up with, but Amanda might know, like, you can't cut that. And Carly might know, there's the number,
I'm just telling you how it appears to me off the top.
so,
Yeah.
Small
I
group
mean, like, in
discussion.
all actuality,
Yeah, I think that'll be part of the responsibility of this committee or team or whatever, to say, okay, here's what we come up with in such base with the relevant, like Amanda, is gonna say, okay, this is what we've discussed, how wet are we in this?
And it has to
Part of
be,
the process.
it
I will
has
go
to
to
be,
your
the
meeting.
board policy 1250 authorizes the committee, and it's an advisory committee, so they're just coming up with stuff that they bring to the trustees to say,
Strictly an
here's what we've
advisory.
come up with, you guys discuss it, say, we like it, we don't like it, here's what we like, what we don't like, go back and study some more,
Process.
or whatever.
and a lot of it, I mean, I know John's working on it, he's looking at things every week.
Yeah.
B has done a ton. I haven't done too much, but I asked Carly a lot of questions. And so, I mean, we've been vetting this as much as possible. So what, are you wanting to bring other people in, or what's?
And how would this be different than the budget meetings we had previously? Where Amanda did say what we could and could not cut. We would ask questions, can we cut this? And she would say, we can't cut this. Is this kind of gonna be a second round of that same thing?
Yeah, only focus down to a smaller group, so they can sit down and be more definitive about it. And that's just a logical process in my mind as to how we might do this.
and you
Again,
want
it's
this
an
done
idea.
by April, correct? April board meeting, you want this done?
Whatever we decide, we can have a meeting before that if we need to.
And when
No,
does,
we can't.
when does early voting start?
Early voting starts second week, give me a second, I got it right here.
So per the election calendar, it's May 6th,
That's
but
right.
we've been hearing in April 30th, so I emailed Kathy Ackerman to get 100%, and I have not heard back because I emailed her at like 5.
According to the elections office and their calendar that's on their website, early voting starts May 6th. And then the actual primary day, voting day, is May 21st.
And when are absentee ballots sent out?
That I don't know.
I
I think it's gonna be slightly before, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wanna say like maybe April 26th.
Yeah, it's like a week earlier or
Yeah.
something. It's not, I can find out while you guys are talking.
Earlier is better, but I think, again, that we get something that we're somewhat comfortable with to present. And again, it's an advisory group. It's not cast in concrete. This is what we think we're gonna have to do if this doesn't pass.
Yeah,
And
so,
Tracy made a good point. We have, I believe, 2 or even maybe 3 precincts that are mail-in, and those go out even before absentees, so.
motion, or what do we got here?
You need a motion if you're gonna have, if you're
I'd
gonna
like
have
to
it one.
I'd like to make one other suggestion too, if we move forward with this committee
Yeah.
with that, again, you pick a couple of folks from here, but then there will actually be a couple people selected from people that presented information, and keep it to a small group.
Does it need to be official? I mean, we've all had access to Arlene, Amanda, and Kim, and the community has had access to them already.
Yeah.
Do we need it official? Do we need to do
I
that?
don't necessarily think so, like, I mean, for me personally, if I was gonna do it, I would probably do it on the day that Carly is going to present her levy information down at CD. And then see what the people have to say.
So, another month.
Basically.
Okay, going back to the question about, when do absentee ballots go out, according to the election calendar from the elections office. April 5th, quote, last day for county clerks to mail absentee ballots. Is April 5th.
So if you don't have an advisory group, then it would be just going to the levy, presentations and taking information, coming back and saying, here's what we've heard.
Yeah.
Do you not want it to be a part of the levy presentation?
No.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't think so. I think, you know, like you could be done and.
Don't we wanna be transparent with people?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So not having that as part of the presentations, would that be transparent?
It would be.
Good question.
And that might be a good thing, again, Carly goes ahead and does her thing about, all right, this is what we're doing, if we don't get this, these are things that we will have to cut, and they're getting into maybe a little bit more specific, so, you know, okay, we can't do this now, we can't do this, we can't do this program, we got, whatever it is, you know, but again, we've got a whole lot more information to work with here at this point than we had a couple months ago.
Madam Clerk,
Yes.
if I were to make a motion and it was voted approved to form this advisory committee or working group, would we have to specify the times and the confirmation of that committee at this point?
No. Because are you gonna have a forum then?
No.
Then I don't even need to vote for it.
My idea is no forum, two, like I said, one from each region or whatever you want to call it. And as if they want to, if the people from the Clearwater Valley, Elk City area want to tag team it, that's fine, they just can't all be at the same place at the same time. Same thing with the Grangeville side.
Well, there's no forum, I don't have to worry about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's what I figured, that's why I said two.
So I'm just wondering, I don't know how diplomatic or democratic that is, just having a small group of, how are we deciding these people? I mean, I'm glad that I don't have to be a part of it, I'm just wondering, like, 7 people are gonna make these decisions? Or, I mean, I kinda liked how
You
the
can't
budget
really-
meetings were
The
public
board would
and
have to approve
everybody
every
could.
decision that was made, right?
Well, I like that. We could do it, I think this way would be fair, which is the word I need. And that is, we have the superintendent, and we have the 2 agreed upon persons, and each person on the board gets to invite one person on the committee. And that's, then we're balanced, I'll say balanced. Everybody gets input.
I
have a
do not
general-
wanna be that subjective person deciding who's gonna be, I don't think that, I think anybody who wants to,
The ones
I
that
feel
should
like
be making
everybody-
decisions are 5 of us.
But we're not making a decision. The point of this is to simply make a recommendation. That's all it is. This, yeah.
but that, we had recommendations for the last 3 months in those budget meetings, and from the public, and from the employees and admin, and I just don't know what else this would offer.
And it never got congealed down to a numbers related list.
So maybe we need to have a meeting of all of us to go through that list.
That could be a separate motion.
Will you just repeat that?
I would be in favor of keeping it a little bit, you know, not quite so formal, keep it with a smaller group, but just making a recommendation. And again, taking a couple people from the community, from wherever, to be part of this whole process. I'm more comfortable with that personally.
Well, like
I
with
don't
the
think
library
you need to
advisory,
have that, right?
Well, we don't, but again,
I suggested committee members, but I think on this one, you guys would want to appoint or ask.
Whew, I think that's taken on a lot when we're appointing people.
Yeah, like
I'm not gonna
ask for
appoint
volunteers.
anybody.
Yeah.
But in like all retrospect, Larry, I don't think you have to have a committee to talk to people.
No, you don't.
No.
I'm just trying to formalize it.
No, I completely understand. I don't
makes
think
me
it's
nervous,
a
but
horrible idea, but I worry that the community would think that because of my chosen ones, that I'm disincluding them of their idea, maybe because they're a non-levy voter, or maybe because they're a yes voter. I don't know. I think just in all fairness, we should probably just do it in the public eye.
Well, this would not be private. These meetings would be open to the public. They just wouldn't be a formal board meeting with a quorum and all that stuff. I never mentioned private.
Could do that. I don't think you need to make a motion. Do we want to do a no action item here, or what do we want to do?
For that question,
If you're not if you're not making a motion to actually set a budget advisory committee, you don't need to make a motion, just do a no action taken. Just do a no action taken.
fine with me. I'm just trying to get the ball rolling here.
All right.
Just say no action.
No action taken. We can move on. Approval of policies.
Mr. Chairman, with your consent, I'd like to move that we move these policies, probably doesn't require a motion, move these
Yes, it
policies
does.
to the second reading.
That does require a motion.
Okay.
I'll second
I move that we
that.
move these two items, which is policy series 2000 and 8000, to a second reading on next month's calendar, please.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. And last thing, informational items. Idaho music educators.
Yeah, just for your reading, it came, there was just a combination of who had participated, and teachers that went down, and they sent a congratulatory letter for you guys to.
It was very nice. It was very nice. Is that gonna go in their file, to give it to teachers?
I can get it to them.
Great.
Could that be shared online as well?
Get that online.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.